You're listening to The Collected Podcast, bringing you stories that remind us who God is and who we are in Him. The Collected Podcast is a production of Collected Ministries. Follow Collected on social media at Collected Podcast, and be sure to visit thecollectedpodcast.com for show notes and additional content related to today's episode.
Welcome to Season 5, Episode 7 of the Collected Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Biondo, and this week I'm so excited to bring you my conversation with Hadley Eddings. She is the creator of Messenger Co., and it's a jewelry business that I'm sure she'll talk about, but she just also has such a rich story of seeing God's faithfulness and following Him through struggles and some tragedy in her life. And so I'm just excited to talk to her today. Hadley, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so to kick it off, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to know the Lord.
Okay. Yeah, so I am a child of parents who are of the faith. And so I grew up going to church, and if the doors were open, we were there, that kind of family. So was always kind of like given this strong background of faith. My grandparents worked for the church. My uncle ended up being a pastor. So I had a really strong background. And then when I was 8 at Vacation Bible School, I accepted the Lord into my heart and was baptized and called myself a Christian. And so, then your faith kind of, I carried my parents' faith and I believed. And as I got a little older and I was in college, was when my faith really became my own. My freshman year of college, I went through a season of kind of isolation and loneliness. And that was really when God captured my heart that He could be all that I needed. And that story goes on, but kind of all intermingles into everything in my life, really. But that was really when my faith became my own, when I realized that, it's Jesus or nothing, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for someone who's listening out there that is already like, I am there right now, I feel so isolated, so alone. I don't know, what hope or encouragement might you have for them?
Yeah, I would just say draw close. So for that season of my life, I was so isolated and so I felt like alone that I just kept turning to my Bible. And I would just read and underline and pray and read books. And I would call my mom, who has a really strong faith, and I would talk to her and just tried to get as much of Him as I could. And prayer was a huge part of that. Just talking to Him constantly, because I had no one else to talk to, really. And kind of just letting Him be enough. And that was my prayer, Lord, you fill me up. And He did. And as I prayed that prayer and I was praying, Lord, would you bring me a community of believers and people who are like-minded? I think that was hard for me to find in college.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is I moved home and transferred to a school that was where I was from. And He did bring me into a community in my church. I got into a college Sunday school group and started making friends with people who were like-minded. And so I was just praying for community and praying for God to bring the right people into your life. But in the meantime, asking Him to just fill you up.
Yeah, that's good. So as you continue to draw closer to Him, and what happened next? What did you end up doing after college? And I don't know if we're at the point in the story yet where you started making jewelry. That might be a
really
little
far down the line.
Okay, so we'll get there eventually, because I definitely want to highlight your jewelry because it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Well, it's actually a cool story. So as I was saying, I was praying constantly, okay, Lord, I just really want a friend. I need a friend who I just feel like is like-minded. And my Sunday school class was really great, but also I just wanted that one-on-one friendship. And so I did find, I became friends with this girl that I went to church with who was in the choir with me. And we became really good friends. And about a year after she and I became friends, she put her brother and I in the same room. And that's my husband.
Oh my gosh.
So the coolest thing, it's so neat for me to look back and you mentioned faithfulness, God's faithfulness through my story. And we'll hear more about that. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But, for me now to look back on my life and to think this 19-year-old girl was a freshman in college and she's praying like, Lord, just bring me my friend, and there were little people and good friendships along the way. But then ultimately what came out of that prayer was my husband.
Yeah.
And so just like, wow, like God, I was just thinking about this last night as I was getting ready for this podcast. I'm like, Lord, you're just so good. You're so faithful. I couldn't see it now. And I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. And that's another thing I would say, like to encourage someone else is you don't see what he's doing right now. You might not see all that he's doing, but he's doing something.
Yeah.
And it might not feel good yet, but I promise that it's going to feel good one day. And you're going to look back and you're going to see that he was working in this situation or that situation. And so he's just so faithful. And that was kind of that came out of that. I ended up meeting my husband and let's see, then life can continue to happen. And here we are today, but there's a lot more in between.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was wondering if you might, maybe we can share a little bit about what happened to you guys later on down the road.
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of the tragedy that marked your family.
Sure. So my husband and I got married in 2009. And then in 2013, we had our first child. His name is Dobbs. He is named after my husband and his father. So he's Gentry Dobbs Eddings III, but we called him Dobbs. So we had Dobbs in 2013. And then, late 2014, we found out we were pregnant with our second child. And we found out that he was also a boy and his name was going to be Reed, which is my maiden name. So we had Dobbs. He was he was a little over 2. And then I was 8 months pregnant with Reed. We had gone out of town for my sister-in-law's wedding. And it was just like the most beautiful wedding, wonderful day. And on the way home, the following day, we were in a terrible car accident. We were kind of caravanning home. So I was in a car with my son Dobbs, and then my husband Gentry was behind me. A big truck hit him and then hit me. And long story short is it instantly killed my 2-year-old son Dobbs. And then I had to have an emergency C-section, which to deliver Reed. And 2 days later, he passed away as well. So we went from being this family of almost 4 to just being Gentry and I again, and walking through some really, really hard life situations. We were 27 years old, so we were young. So that was the beginning of several hard years.
Yeah. I mean, that's something no parent should ever have to experience. And I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with our listeners. And,
Sure.
Even years later, I'm sure it's not easy to talk about. Yeah. As you, look back, are there any ways that you saw God show up for you that are just beyond human reasoning?
Yeah. So, I've shared our story so many times, but it's been a little while. And last night, I'm sorry, I think I just knocked my video. Last night, as I was just thinking about the questions and what we're going to talk about today, I was just thinking just faithfulness, like God's faithfulness is just all over my life. And that's just what I've been able to see throughout just everything, really. Yeah. So many little moments, not little, but moments where either if I didn't see them in the moment, I can see them now. So the first one being that when we were on the road, before our accident, we came to a stoplight, and it was probably like 10 seconds before we were hit. And I didn't know we were about to get hit, but I just felt the Lord nudge me to tell Dobbs that I loved him. And I remember kind of like, okay, like that's silly. Like I felt like Jesus said, tell Dobbs you love him. I was like, okay, I can do that. And so I reached back and I grabbed his little foot and I said, I love you, buddy. And then the next thing I know, everything changed. So, I'll never forget that. And the kindness that God just had to give me, I wasn't going to get to say goodbye again, And so just his kindness that he would give me just a moment, like, just say it one more time, just tell him you love him, is so special to me. And then just right after that, we were where our accident happened, was at an intersection. We weren't in the intersection, but just ahead of us was an intersection, and there was a fire truck fueling up at this gas station. And so instantly we had first responders to our accident.
Oh my gosh.
So that was another, like, just God was there.
Yeah.
And he was ready. And, I want people to hear that God didn't cause this. I don't say it like that. God, this is, sin causes this. And, but God was there, and he was working in it. Yeah. And so, from him letting me tell Dobbs that I loved him one more time, to the first responders being there instantly, and many more things throughout our story. We ended up being in the hospital for several days, and we had some really incredible encounters with doctors and nurses who were believers and shared their faith with us. And then moving on, we had this outpouring of love from our family in Charlotte and our friends and people we don't know, and just all over the world, really just sending money and funds and gifts and cards and everything. And we ended up having this large amount of money that was for us to pay our medical bills. And so we did, and then we paid, and we had so much left over. And so we were able to donate that money, and more money kept coming in for this, but we were able to donate it to an organization that's near and dear to our hearts called Mission of Hope. They are in Haiti and in the Dominican Republic now, but just in that time they were just in Haiti. And so now there's a school in Haiti that's called the Dobbs and Reed Eddings Primary School. Oh. So, there are so many more examples of God's faithfulness through our story, but that one is just a standout. For me, it's like what Satan meant for evil, God said, listen, for these 2 lives, now we're going to educate and feed and take care of 500 children for years and years and years and years to come. So, just so many things.
Yeah. Man, and like you said, like, God didn't cause this, but all the little ways he provided show us that he wasn't surprised by it. Like, right. I think there's, for, whoever is listening out there, whatever you're going through, even if it's like a nightmare, God wasn't surprised by it. He didn't cause it, but he can still make a way through it. And he's still there. He never leaves us. In our last episode, or a couple episodes ago, we talked about El Roy, the name of God, the God who sees us. And that can be hard to digest sometimes, because it's like, God, if you saw this, how could you still allow it to happen? Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you change it? Which is kind of maybe a tricky question to answer, but for somebody who's wrestling through that right now, have you learned anything about kind of that name of God who sees and who is with us even through tragedy?
Yeah, so I would say like we said, God didn't cause this, but he allowed it, and he works through it. We are like, it's like being a parent, you can't stop your child from doing whatever they're going to do, but you love them no matter what. And you're going to work to, okay, maybe they mess up. And I'm not saying that we messed up, but someone did down the line, which caused all of this.
Yeah.
And as your child's parent, you're going to try to help them get it right. Right. So I think that the analogy of being a parent has really helped me see God's love for me. But, yeah, I just think God loves us, and he takes our broken pieces and he turns them into good for his glory. We say a lot, beauty for ashes. So he takes our ashes and he makes something beautiful out of it. It might not be what I wanted. It might not be how I had my life planned out. I had my life as I have my 2 children, and we're going to be good. And I'm going to see them grow up, and I'm going to see them do all the things that I've always wanted. But that is not what happened. But God is doing something beautiful still.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have 2 more? Do you have 2 sons now? 2.
Should we keep talking about faithfulness?
Yes. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So I'll start from the beginning, but not the beginning, but the middle, I guess. So after our accident and, life's going on for about a year now, 2016, we found out that we were pregnant. And we were very excited. And then one morning, the morning we were going to have our ultrasound and figure out, have the, okay, who's in there? And are you a boy or are you a girl? I had walked into my husband's office, and he was reading his Bible, and he was a little down. And he said, I'm just sad because I'm reading, and it's telling me that my quiver should be full. And then the blessed is the man whose quiver is full, and children are a heritage from the Lord. And I just looked at him and I said, well, I bet we're going to find out we're having twins today. He laughed. I just really had this feeling. So anyway, we go to our ultrasound appointment, and she, puts the little thing on my stomach, and it's twins. It was just like that. And I just started laughing and crying, and Gentry was laughing like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And so, we found out we were having twins. Like, God is restoring to us, not replacing, but restoring to us this family that we lost. And come to find out a few weeks later, they're boys. Oh. And they're identical boys. And now they're 5.5 years old, and they're in kindergarten, and they're growing up. But they share their brother's names. So their names are Isaiah Dobbs and Amos Reed. So we just gave them their big brother's names, and they know all about them, and they talk about them all the time. Oh. And sometimes I think they know more about this than maybe they need to know. But so God is faithful, and for us, it's cool because I could imagine as a child of parents who have lost in such a dramatic way, in such a big way that we've lost our first children, that maybe it could feel like a little intimidating and a little hard to grow up under this, this shadow almost. But they are part of the story too, So we always tell them, Dobbs and Reed this is their story, but you are part of it. You are the restoration part, which is so cool. And just to see God's faithfulness through restoring our family has been a blessing. And, I don't talk about it enough because it's good to remind yourself of that. So,
yeah.
Cool.
So as, when you found out you were pregnant, and now as the boys are growing up, are there any fears you've had to release to God, or just anything you've had to kind of release in order to continue to give God your yes and walk forward?
Yeah. So, I think that just continues to speak to who God is and his faithfulness. And, I really haven't had a lot of fears of parenting. I think for me, it was like restoring joy. Always, from the time I was, I don't know, I could talk probably. I knew that what I wanted was to be a mom and to be a wife, and God had given me that, and it felt like it was taken away for a while. But I just knew that was what I was made to do, and so being restored, my children, was just a blessing to me and has given me so much joy. The thing I would say that I have had to release to just continue to follow God is the why. That's a question I'm never going to be able to answer. And to be honest, if I strive to answer the why, I'm just going to be living in frustration and anxiety, and it's just not going to be good.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll find out. Maybe one day I'll find out why. But right now, what I think is the most important is just looking at all the faithfulness and all the good things that God has done through the hurt and the grief and the pain.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to look at it. I can ask why a million times. I'm never going to get the answer, but I can see God do good things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And in the last episode, we had a woman, Marcy Gregg, on, and she shared, because she lost her memory, like 13 years of her life were gone with a medical complication after her third baby. And she shared something that was so powerful, and I can't stop thinking about it, that God revealed to her, I did not save you for your past. I saved you for your future. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that, because it's miraculous that you survived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And God has such a beautiful future for you and your new, your family and your two new boys, so
yeah.
I don't know. I can't wait to see what God continues to do through your family and through these two boys who might not have existed had this tragedy not happened. Like, maybe you still would have had more kids.
I know.
Who knows? Who knows? We can't speculate on all that, but I just feel like God has his hand on your family in such a powerful way. And I can't wait, from a distance to just see you guys continue to thrive and see what God continues to do in all of your lives.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things my husband always says is it's not over till it's good, And as a Christian, that's like something that you have to hold on to. It's not over till it's good, because that's what the Bible tells us. It's going to be good. So keep going on, and
and in heaven, when it's all perfect and you're all reunited, and I don't know, that's the hope we have in Jesus too.
Totally. Yes.
Thank you for sharing all of that, and I still want to talk about your jewelry, but it's a hard transition. But as your boys are growing up now, and you have this small business, and kind of what is your life like now, and how did you end up starting a small business?
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, I think I've always known that my dream was to be a mom, and but I don't know that I realized that dream was as hard as it is. Being a mom's a tough job. And so it really came out of trying to find a little something for myself, an identity outside of just cleaning up after everyone and taking care of everyone, something that I enjoy. And I've always been a creative person, and I like to make things look pretty. And so one day I was just like, you know what? I had seen some of these cute little bracelets with words on them, and I was like, I bet I could make them and then make myself some. And so I did. And then people started asking me to make them one. And, I was like, maybe this could be like a tiny source of income. And so, so I just started making these bracelets with words and messages on them, and named my small business Messenger Co. And it's been going on for about 2.5 years now, and it's turned into more jewelry and earrings and necklaces, and it's just been really fun. It's been a great creative outlet, and it's been a nice little source of income for our family. And it's been good for me to just have that ability to create and do something that's not about taking care of anyone else, but just having fun and making something pretty. So that's really where it came out of.
Yeah. And for maybe there's some moms out there listening who have the little kids and feel overwhelmed by it and feel like they're kind of losing their own identity.
Mhm.
Like, how did you intentionally carve out time for this? And like, what were the kind of practicalities of like bringing this into the world?
Yeah. Well, it's hard with little kids. And I will say, like, I think it was the first year they went to preschool. I was like, okay, I have 2 mornings a week and I can just play a little, and instead of getting everything done that I want to, maybe one of those days I will just focus on doing some jewelry or fun stuff like that for a little while. And so that's kind of how it started, is when I started to have that like tiny break. But then, they're home for the summer and it goes slower in the summer for sure. But as they've gotten older, it's like rest time is when I would play around with things like that. And so, yeah, just or nighttime, finding like a little time to just carve out. It's something that you really enjoy. Finding a little time for it won't be that hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's not, being a mom is the most wonderful gift I've ever been given, but it's hard sometimes too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a mom yet, but I see my friends doing it and it looks very difficult sometimes.
Yeah. It's you never want to be like ungrateful for the blessing that you've been given, but there are some days where you are just more tired than others and a little more overwhelmed. So for me, it was really just about finding a little something for me. And it's been good. It's been really sweet and fun.
And not feeling guilty about it.
Yeah. Well, I still struggle sometimes. Yeah. It's, as I think, just taking time away from your family is hard but it's needed. And as a mom, whether it's a couple hours a week to do a little jewelry, or if it's just to go get your nails done or something, I think there's always going to be that little sliver of guilt that you're left your family to do something else. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. So
yeah. And I think it's important, again, speaking as a non-parent, I do think it's important for like your kiddos to see you being who God created you to be and seeing you model taking care of yourself and pursuing your passions. And they'll feed off of that.
Totally.
Yeah. And creativity is so important. Like God made us, we're created by a creative God and we're in his image and we are creative beings. And that looks different for everybody. Maybe someone listening out there, you're like, I'm not creative.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're not a quote unquote artist.
Right.
But all of our lives are creating something.
Right.
And it's beautiful. So I love that you're doing this and just claiming that time and putting something beautiful out into the world.
Oh, thank you. It's been very fun for me.
So as we kind of wrap up, this went very fast.
It did go fast.
They always do. I'm like, maybe I just need to make it a 2-hour show. But what did we miss? I know we covered so much of your life so quickly. So is there a final word of hope or encouragement, or just anything you feel like we kind of skipped over?
I was trying to make sure I didn't forget the good parts, and you reminded me that I do have twins, and that was like, oh yeah, there's God's faithfulness right there. That's probably number one. I think I would just say, I don't know if there's anything we skipped over, but one thing that I think is really important and that I try to often do in my life is to remember God's goodness. You have to look back. You have to look back at God's faithfulness through your life, and whether it be like the tiniest thing, just look and remember the times that he was good, because I think that is what sustains you moving forward. For my husband and I, definitely, we both had different trials in our life before we lost our children, and those trials definitely prepared us in little ways for, what was coming. So just look back at what God's already done, and remember his goodness and his faithfulness to you. And I think that will encourage your heart to keep going and to keep pressing in and to draw near to God in the hard stuff.
That's good. Are you a journaler?
Sometimes.
I know.
I go through stages.
Yes. I want to be more than I am.
Yes.
But yeah. Well, thank you so much. I am so encouraged by just your continued faith and joy and the way you proclaim God's faithfulness. We, talk on the show about who God is and who we are in Him. And so I feel like you so beautifully highlighted the faithfulness of God.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What a powerful story from Hadley. I'm just so thankful that she's willing to share. It can't be easy, but just the story of God's faithfulness and the way that she and her husband can still find joy and see God's hand through all of it, and like she said, you never know all the answers to why, but that she can still see God's provision and God going before her just to provide in miraculous ways is really, really inspiring and just makes me love God even more. I mean, that's the heart of this podcast, continuing to see tangible examples of who God is and how He is working in the lives of believers. And, so I was just really inspired by Hadley's story and so thankful that we serve a God who cares about every little detail. And, when she shared about how God prompted her to tell Dobbs that she loves him in those last moments that she didn't know were his last moments, I could have started sobbing. I was like, no, you have to ask the next question. But it's such a beautiful gift, like that God even cares about those small, tender moments. He cares about every little detail. He loves us and He cares about our hearts so deeply that He'll just prompt those sweet things that in the moment probably didn't seem like a big deal and then ended up being such a gift. And so I just pray in your life over the next couple weeks and throughout 2023 that you see those sweet moments that God is giving you, even in the midst of tragedy, or maybe some struggles you're going through. Maybe one day you'll look back and see how those prepared you and equipped you for what was coming down the road. And I just pray that, that nothing is wasted in your life. I've been reading through Genesis with the year-long Bible journey I'm doing through the daily walk. And we're in Genesis, the 40s right now. And it's the story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into Egypt, and he was in prison for 13 years before Pharaoh called him out to interpret this dream. And, there's a lot more details to the story, but 13 years, and then in one day, everything changed. And I was thinking about that as Hadley was sharing about her, meeting her husband, how it's a season of loneliness, and then all of a sudden, in one day, everything changed. And then the whole course of her life was different. And, she had these friends and she met her husband and they had this family. And, I just want to encourage you. Joseph waited 13 years and then in an instant, he went from the prison to the palace. And so I don't know what you're waiting in or how long you've been waiting or how much waiting is ahead of you. But in any moment, the whole situation could change. And even if it doesn't change yet, God is still there with you in the current season you're in. And so I loved reading that about Joseph and then hearing Hadley's story and kind of seeing those connections between the two. So that's where I want to leave you, that hope and reminder that God is with you through it all. And the thing you're waiting for can happen in an instant. So don't lose hope and continue to rest in the promises that God is faithful and God is good. And like Hadley said, it's not over until it's good. And in the end, when Jesus comes back, And when we are in heaven with him in eternity, we will see what good really means. Like, I don't think we can even grasp with our human minds right now how good it will really be once God redeems this world to what it was intentionally or initially meant to be in the beginning. So that is where I will leave you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope that you experience the goodness of God in new ways this week. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Collected Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you'd help spread the word. Check back here for new episodes dropping every other Thursday. You can follow along on social media at Collected Ministries.